Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of...
Numbers are the silent architecture of reality. They form the language of nature, the code behind matter, the rhythm behind time. Wherever we look, from the spirals of galaxies to the spirals in seashells, from the orbits of planets to the very heartbeat in your chest, numbers are present, guiding, shaping, and structuring. Hidden within the infinite sea of counting lies a special set, the primes. Chapter 1. The power of primes. Mathematically, a prime number is any integer greater than 1 that has no positive divisors other than 1 itself. They are the building blocks of arithmetic. Every integer is a product of primes. They are irreducible. They do not break down. That quality, the indivisibility, is what makes them powerful. A prime is a clean unit. You can't factor it into smaller social meanings the same way you can with composite numbers. That makes primes ideal anchors for ritual coding. When you stamp a date with a prime, you're using a number that resists internal breakdown. In myth and occult practice, numbers have been read as seeds of meaning. The ancients built cosmologies around numeric correspondences. The Kabbalah assigns value to letters. Pythagoreans thought numbers were the true realities behind the visible world. Today, primes play the same function for pattern seekers. They are a minimal, unmistakable tag. When an event happens on a prime date, the claim is not, this happened, as much as this moment is now marked in the physical plane and in consciousness. Because a prime number is greater than 1 that cannot be divided evenly by anything except 1 and itself, they represent the indivisible atoms of mathematics. So 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and so on. Every other number is built from primes. 15, 3 times 5. 3 and 5 are prime. 28, 2 times 2 times 7. 2 and 7 are prime. 100, 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. As a working example, let's break down the number 18. So first you divide it by the smallest prime, which is 2. 18 divided by 2 gives us 9. Then do the same process for 9. The smallest prime that fits into 9 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 3 itself is prime. So 18 is built from 2 times 3 times 3. This means that 18 is literally built out of the prime seeds of 2 and 3. This process here is called prime factorization, and it reveals the DNA of numbers. No matter how vast or large the number is, the core is always prime. If you break down 1,000,000 into its factors, you eventually arrive at primes. If you break down a random 7-digit lottery number, you eventually arrive at primes. Everything reduces back to these indivisible seeds. And that is why primes are eternal. They cannot be broken down further, they do not decay, they are not affected by entropy, and they carry within them the essence of mathematical purity. Ancient mathematicians knew this. Pythagoras saw numbers not just as tools of counting, but as living archetypes. The number 2 represented duality, the number 3 represented harmony, and the number 7 represented completion. But primes, above all, represented, and always will represent, the indivisible spark of the divine. Chapter 2. The Matrix of Dates. If primes are the seeds of mathematics, then time itself is seeded with them. History is not random, it is encoded. When you examine the dates of key world events, again and again you find prime signatures. A particularly potent configuration is when both the day and the month are prime. I call these double prime dates because you're stacking indivisible anchors on top of one another. You're giving the calendar a binary stamp. The month is prime, the day is prime. The date becomes a small fortress of meaning. Here are a few excellent examples of events marked with double prime nodes. Guy Fawkes Night, 5/11, which we've just passed. So we all know about this. On November the 5th, 1605, a plot to blow up the British Parliament was foiled. The date became immortalised in ritual. Remember, the 5th of November. Both 5 and 11 are prime. And even deeper, the 5th prime is 11. So that's a double encoding of prime resonance. And it's not any surprise that this event has been ritually celebrated for centuries. The memory itself becomes part of the encoding, embedding prime symbolism into culture. Then we have the London bombings, 7/7. I'm sure you all know about this. On July the 7th, 2005, London was shaken by coordinated bombings, killing 52 people. The date itself is a ritual code. The 7th day of the 7th month, a double prime resonance, plus 52 dead. 5 plus 2 also brings us back to 7. So that's a triple prime resonance. 7/7/7. 7 has always symbolized completeness, cycles, and spiritual significance, and to triple it creates a triad of that encoded power. We have the Madrid bombings, which was on the 3rd of the 11th, March the 11th, 2004. Madrid rocketed by coordinated train bombings, killing 191 people. 3 and 11 are both prime numbers. Another double prime resonance. And this event happened exactly 911 days after 9/11. That is not an accident. It's ritual encoding. And we're just about to move on to that, as you'll see, because Twin Towers, 9/11, September the 11th, 2001. The most infamous prime-coded date in modern history. And this one is encoded on a deeper level, because when we look at the date, we only see that one number is prime. 9 is not, but 11 is, okay? However, if we remove the middle slash, we get 911, the 156th prime number. From 9/11, 2001, to March the 11th, 2004, it was exactly 911 days. So there's more ritual encoding there. Not every event on a prime date is some grand conspiracy. Coincidence does happen. But patterns reveal themselves when you see clusters of prime events over time. Thematic overlaps or triads where 3 major events each echo each other in number, motif, or timing. In light of these examples I've shown you, all of those are mass casualty attacks in major Western countries, and they all have strong prime numerology. Guy Fawkes is 5/11, London was 7/7, Madrid was 3/11, 9/11 was obviously 911. The repetition of prime-coded dates across similar types of events, mass trauma, public fear, extreme policy changes, it's the pattern that we have to study. No, it's not proof of a single conspiracy. It's evidence of what I call symbolic grammar in practice. Now, you may be thinking, why link these events up with primes? Well, as I have previously explained, primes are crisp and unmistakable. If you want a symbol that resists being reframed or diluted, choose a prime. It's a clean marker that survives later reinterpretation. The same event will be covered, analysed, reframed, and spun, but the date is always consistent. A date on a double prime is a very durable tag. Each event deploys prime-coded timing to ensure permanence in cultural memory. Once you see the pattern, you can read the larger narratives. Shock creates openings. Meanings are then inserted. and a new status quo is normalized. These primes are the scorekeepers. Chapter 3: Primetime TV, Attention Framing and Subconscious Engineering. Numbers don't only shape calendars and event dates, they also shape broadcast scheduling. The very phrase prime time isn't some cute marketing term dreamt up by TV executives. It's a literal invocation of numerology. Prime here means more than best or most valuable. It's a head nod to a block of time engineered to be numerically potent and psychologically fertile. The TV industry's prime time, traditionally the evening block where the largest audiences gather, compress attention into a single high energy window. Between roughly 7 and 11 p.m, people stop working, eat, dim the lights, and turn to their glowing screens. This creates a collective trance window, a digital half where messages can be delivered with maximum impact. Even today, with streaming, global feeds, and on-demand viewing, the principle remains the same. Choose a high attention slot and you amplify your message dramatically. Now let's take this further. If you overlay prime numbers on scheduling, for example, airing a program at 7 p.m, dropping a trailer at 11:11, or scheduling a world event at 7:07 p.m, you're not just picking a convenient time. You're stamping the feed with a shared numeric resonance. These timestamps act like subconscious keys. Human brains are energy hungry, okay? So we may not consciously register the numbers, but our deeper layers do. Repetition of numeric cues at moments of high attention transforms raw information into conditional signal. Think about the ritualistic nature of the nighttime broadcast, okay? The average family, people gather, the room darkens, the screen glows, images and sounds fill the senses while the conscious mind relaxes. It's like Plato's cave. And the images on the screen are just the flickers of light from the flame reflecting on the wall, serving as a illusion. This is textbook trance induction. For decades, major announcements, presidential addresses, breaking news, sports finals, spectacle-driven performances have been strategically placed into this communal slot, so the imprint is deep. When you combine prime-coded timestamps with prime time exposure, you're not just reaching people, you're quite literally engraving symbols and ideas directly into their subconscious minds. This is why you often see coincidental numerics attached to major broadcasts or announcements. It's a double-layered engineering, okay? Time slot plus number coding. Prime numbers serve as clean resonant frequencies. Prime time serves as the amplifier. Pair them together and you get an exponential mimetic effect. Ideas that not only enter the public consciousness, but stick. They become the memes, the symbols and reference points for the decades afterwards. Prime date plus prime time equals prime effect. In other words, you can think of prime dates as the atoms and the prime time scheduling as the particle accelerator. One gives you the building blocks of ritual, the other smashes them into the public psyche with a maximum force. Chapter 4: Prime atoms, numbers as the atoms of ritual. Think of the entire reality we experience as sort of a laboratory. And in this lab, events are not random, they're engineered compounds. Just as a chemist selects and combines atoms to create a molecule with precise properties, so do ritual designers select and combine numbers to create events with specific energetic effects. In this metaphor, prime numbers are the atoms of the numerical world. At a subatomic level, atoms are the smallest indivisible units of matter that combine to make molecules, compounds, and ultimately all physical substances. Each atom carries its own vibrational signature and bonding rules. Now, in exactly the same way, prime numbers are the smallest indivisible numerical units, the building blocks from which all other numbers, composite numbers that is, are formed. You cannot break a prime into smaller numbers, just as you cannot break a stable atom into smaller ordinary units without high energy intervention. Now take this analogy one level higher. If events are molecules, then dates are atoms. The day, the month, the year, and the time at which an event occurs are like protons, neutrons, and electrons, the inner structure of its numeric atom. When somebody designs a ritual, they don't just pick a day at random. They choose their atoms carefully. Using a prime day, say the 7th, the 11th, the 13th, or the 23rd, with a prime month, the 5th, the 7th, the 11th, so May, July, November, creates what you might call a clean bond. It's like using a noble gas in chemistry. It creates a stable structure that will hold energy longer and more predictably. That's why so many high value public rituals are set on prime dates or intervals. You know, they're not just symbols, they're a numeric chemistry experiment, for lack of a better term. Now this chemist model is also useful for analysis, because when you look at an event's numbers, don't just see them as dates, look at them as if a chemist would when examining a molecule's structure. Ask yourself what primes are present, what composite numbers are hiding primes inside them, what is the ratio or interval between the event and the anniversaries. Breaking a composite date into primes can reveal an inner story, the hidden formula of the ritual. For example, 511 combines both the 5th and the 11th, both prime. 77 combines the same prime twice, and encodes it even further with the death toll, which was 52. You know, these things are not coincidences, they're like bonds in a chemical compound. But primes do more than just structure the event. They also act as resonant frequencies in public cognition. Numbers, as we all know, carry vibration. Primes are especially pure frequencies because they cannot be divided evenly. When an event is packed with prime numbers, day, month, interval, anniversary, time slot, the mimetic compound becomes more stable. It stays in people's minds for longer, reverberates through the culture more powerfully, and resists being forgotten. Okay? That leads us to trauma and things of that nature, but we won't get into that in this video. We'll save that for a later date. That's why most globally traumatic events are on prime dates, because it's a higher resonant frequency which seeps into your subconscious more, which has a longer lasting effect. But that is for a different video. That's why anniversaries and commemorations of prime dated events remain so potent, because they were engineered for persistence. This is why high value rituals often contain multiple prime signals bundled together. It's not overkill, it's engineering. By building an event on a scaffold of primes, you're creating a persistent public memory molecule, something that locks into the collective psyche and can be reactivated whenever needed. Just like a chemist reuses a catalyst, these prime rituals can be referenced, mirrored, or repeated to evoke the same resonance decades later. So instead of seeing patterns loosely, this chapter gives you a method, a disciplined, almost forensic way of reading numbers. You're not just looking for coincidences, you're looking at the molecular structure of a ritual. Once you start thinking this way, the patterns aren't vague anymore. They simply present themselves as formulas. Chapter 5. Decoding the Prime Code. Ritual Literacy. At this point, you've seen how primes are more than just numbers. They are seeds of mathematics, anchors of ritual, and They're atoms of a hidden chemistry that runs through history, media, collective memory, and the fabric of our own reality. But the question remains, what do we do with this knowledge? How do we move beyond simple fascination into application? And this is where ritual literacy begins. Think of ritual literacy as the ability to read numbers the way a linguist reads letters or a musician reads notes. Numbers aren't neutral. They're chosen because they represent specific meanings and archetypal energies. Events aren't random. They're placed. Once you understand the grammar of the prime code, you can start decoding the signals hidden in plain sight. Now, the first layer is pattern recognition. Scan any event, a breaking headline, a sudden tragedy, or a political announcement. Ask the prime questions. What day is it? Is the month prime? Is the day prime? Does the year reduce to primes? Are there anniversaries or intervals from early events that land on a prime number? This isn't about forcing patterns. You don't need to force the patterns, trust me. It's about training your eye to spot the clean fingerprints that primes leave behind. And they're all over the place, so you don't need to force it. And believe you me, once you get better at spotting these, you won't need to really do much. You'll just see them instantly. They will do the work for you because they do not stray from the pattern, okay? They're always there. Now, the second layer is context linking. Not all primes are used the same way. Certain primes cluster around specific themes. 11 echoes through events of trauma and towers. 7 repeats in cycles of completion and sacrifice. 3 is typically a marker of ritual triads. 8 signifies time loops. And, by identifying which number clusters are around which types of events, war, finance, disasters, celebrity deaths, you begin to not just see numbers, but categories of ritual in play. The third layer is understanding prediction versus retrodiction. The prime code is precise in structure, but flexible in content. You may not be able to predict exactly what will happen, but you can often see when something is primed. When a prime anniversary approaches, say, 911 days or a 7-7 interval, it becomes a window of ritual opportunity. And this is how these planners work. They don't need to invent meaning after the fact. They align action to the numbers and then let the resonance do the rest. Now, the fourth layer is psychic immunity. Rituals rely on attention. I'm going to say that again. Rituals rely on attention. The trance effect of a prime coded event is strongest when people take it in passively, without awareness. The moment you recognize the pattern, the spell begins to break, and that's the trick. Awareness dissolves the unconscious bond. Seeing the structure is like seeing the strings of a puppet show, and once you notice them, the illusion begins to weaken. And last but not least, the fifth layer, prime resets. Just as rituals can be engineered with primes to last, they can also be neutralized with counter rituals of awareness. By sharing the patterns, by teaching others to see, you shatter the monopoly of meaning. A chemical bond can be broken with the right catalyst. A prime coded ritual can be broken with collective recognition. So here is a formula I give to you to carry. Prime date plus prime time equals prime effect. And that is the core of the code. Once you know how to read it, you will never look at dates, events, or broadcasts the same way again. You'll start to see the fingerprints in anniversaries, in headlines, in sudden tragedies that just so happen to fall on double prime dates. The world doesn't look random anymore. It looks scripted. And that is the purpose of this lecture. Not to tell you what to believe, but to give you, the listener, the tools to decode the signals for yourself. Once you see the prime code, you carry the decoder ring, and you can read the hidden layer beneath history. This is ritual literacy. This is the language of power. This is the language of the people that control us. And this is the prime code.